Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, today's ink is by Noodlers, and I have in the 4.5 ounce bottle. I've used this much of it, where my fingernail is. And I had a little trouble with the eyedropper. Yeah, it's Noodler's Nakita Red. It's very straightforward red. I've seen some reviews and reports and things where people have trouble with it, but this is one of my more well-behaved reds. The thing is, it's just it's not terribly interesting. So, well, I use it a lot. I'm not wowed by it, but it's good. It's decent. It behaves well. Let's look at the chromatography. As you can see, there's some potential for water resistance here in this sort of more of a pink color. Then it goes up into almost like a Valentine red. And then right at the edges, you see a very dark, rich red. Now, all the tests were done in these two pens. This one is a Waterman Hemisphere with a fine nib. And this is a Hero 616 with a broadened nib, but I wanted to show you this. This is one of those red inks that will not dye these weird rubbery sacks in this, and it's never dyed any of my converters. It's not one of those troublesome reds. So anyways, moving on. Paper test, top down in density, Clairefontaine 90 grams per square meter. Come on, camera. Now, this was with the 616 with the broadened nib. It took 14 seconds to dry. It was slightly wet, and I'm not going to be able to get this on camera, I know it already, but I noticed just as I started picking up this paper that there's near gold sheen around that scrubby. So, but yeah, it's vibrant, it's well behaved, there's no bleed, feather, or spread. It dyed the paper a little bit. But as you can see, what's there is really there, and it's really clear. It's very readable. It didn't explode. It didn't feather. Next is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter, where it took 8 seconds to dry. And here you might be able to see some of that sheen. There you go. And the scrubby. Sort of a gold color. So here I said there's no sheen, but I noticed just now that there is. So flow is still a little wet. No bleed, feather, spread. Did dye the paper a little bit, but again, what's there is pretty there and pretty clear. Is that? No, that's from the marker, sorry. Next is Tomoe River Paper, where you definitely see sheen. Like this just lit up. And it's in the letters too, it's just I know I'm not going to be able to get it as easily on camera, so. 14 seconds to dry. I said it looked a little thinner here, like it, like it had thinned out a bit, but only a touch. This is not a very shady ink. It doesn't shade much, but yeah, water test. Dyed the paper the barest bit. You can barely even see it on camera. But what's there is still fairly clear. It's not very dark, but I mean, if you had to recover something, you could. Echo might be an issue for people who are very sensitive to that. Now, all these tests on the cheaper paper I did with the fine nib because I kind of wanted to show that this ink is not problematic on cheap paper if you're reasonable with a nib. So this was the Hemisphere fine nib. Took 2 seconds to dry. Almost no bleed. Very little feathering, and where there is, it's very small, like at the bottom of the E in feathering. It's almost not noticeable. That water test, I mean, look at that. It dyed the paper a little bit, and it feathered just a little bit, but it's dark, it's there, it's clear, it didn't explode. Look at that. Almost no bleeding, except in the water test. Yeah. I mean, you got a little in the scrubby, and that's it. So, and this is not the best copier paper, so. Next is Mead Notebook Paper, where it took 3 seconds to dry. I'm going to try and bring this in close, because it is fairly well behaved. There's As I said, almost no bleed or feathering, because where there is, it's just sort of like a furriness. It's not too bad. Again, the water test is, I mean, on Mead Notebook Paper, this is pretty good. I dyed the paper a little bit, but what's there is fairly there. It's still fairly dark, though it did explode a little bit. And I mean, look at that. And you can notice here that along the side there's more bleeding, which makes me think that it's something to do with the processing of the paper. So, yeah, on Mead, really not bad. Next is Moleskine, where it took 4 seconds to dry, but yeah, there's some bleed, some feather, some spread, but I mean, even if you look in really close, it's not hideous, it's not ugly, it's not, you know, it doesn't look like a cactus. And if you can see in this water test, the paper's starting to come apart. I really scrubbed it. And yeah, it's still there. It's still fairly dark, still fairly readable. And look at that. I mean, you get like the scrubby and the odd dot here or there, but really didn't bleed through. So there you go for your consideration. Noodler's Nakita Red. It's your basic, straightforward, standard red. It's well behaved. If you use it within reason. Doesn't dye the inside of your pens. It's a bit water resistant. It's not the most water resistant, but it's a bit water resistant. So yeah, for your consideration from the Triple N Network. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching. Bye.